He froze at the threshold. The house had been shut for years, boards across the windows, dust thick on every sill. Yet there she was, standing straight as a fence post, pressing a splintered stick against the frame of the front window. "Stop right there," he said. She didn't turn. The stick moved slowly from corner to corner, like she was testing the bones of the house. "You deaf?" I said. "Stop." The girl finally looked at him. Her eyes were steady, too steady for someone caught trespassing. "Mama said sunlight used to pour in here." The words cut sharp. He felt them before he thought them. "This is my place," he snapped. "Ain't yours to touch." "I ain't touching, just measuring." "For what?" She didn't answer, just dragged the stick across the sill, marking dust lines. "Answer me." His boots scraped the floor. "What are you doing in my house?" She set the stick down, leaned it against the frame. "Mama told me it was brighter once. Said light came through like water. I wanted to see how wide it was." He swallowed, throat dry. "Who's your mama?" "You don't remember. I asked for a name." "Names don't matter. Memories do." His jaw clenched. He felt the boards under his boots creak, same as they did when his father stomped years back. The house hadn't been forgotten. "You can't just walk in and start talking like that," he said. "Get out." "Not yet." "You don't get a choice." She stood her ground. "You already boarded the windows. Sunlight can't get in anymore. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not." The bluntness made him step back. She spoke like she'd lived here, like she had the right. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Truth." He laughed once, bitter. "There ain't any left." She crossed her arms. "That's a lie." The silence stretched. He could hear the tick of the clock that hadn't ticked in 10 years. It wasn't moving, but he swore he heard it. "You break in through the back?" he muttered. The door wasn't locked. It was. "Not for me." His hands curled at his sides. "You think I'm afraid of you?" She shrugged. "You're afraid of what I know." He stared at her, small frame, hair tangled like she'd walked through brush, face pale from cold. She couldn't be more than 13, yet she looked at him like he was the intruder. "Where are you from?" he asked. "Down the road." "Ain't nobody down that road." "You ain't looked." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me your mama's name." "She told me not to." "Then why send you here?" The girl tilted her head, studying him. "She said if I ever wanted to know what happened, I should stand in this room and wait for you to come home." His breath caught. The stick leaned against the frame, thin and sharp as a spear. "What happened with what?" he whispered. "You know?" "No, I don't." "Yes, you do." He turned from her, ran a hand through his hair. Dust fell from the rafters. He wanted to push her out, slam the door, and never hear that voice again. But his legs stayed rooted. "You don't belong here," he muttered. She didn't move. "Neither do you." The words sank. He forced himself to look at her again. "How long have you been here?" "Since morning." "You eat?" "No." "You drink?" "No." He rubbed his face. "Then go home." She looked around the room, eyes running over the boards, the cobwebs, the peeling paint. "This is home." His stomach twisted. "Don't say that." "It's true." It's not." She knelt, pressed her fingers to the cracks in the floor. "Mama said she used to set me down here, said I would crawl toward the light." "That's enough." His voice cracked. She looked up. "Why'd you cover the windows?" "Didn't want folks looking in." "You didn't want light." "I don't need light." "Everybody needs light." He shook his head. "You don't know what you're talking about." She rose again, steady, calm. "You're scared of it. That's why you boarded it." "Stop. Light shows things." He slammed his fist against the wall. Dust poured down, but the board stayed. "Stop." She flinched, but held her ground. "Mama said you'd be like this, angry, pretending not to remember." He turned away, pacing. His boots left prints in the dust. The house smelled of rot and wood, the air heavy with years of silence. "You're lying," he said. "No." "Yes, I never knew your mama." Her voice cut firm. "Then why's my quilt still upstairs?" His throat closed. He spun to her. "What quilt?" "The one with flowers stitched at the corners." He shook his head. "I burned it." Her lips curled into something between a smile and a wound. "You tried." The clock ticked again, louder, though the hands didn't move. He pressed his palms to his ears, but it didn't stop. "You can't be here." He whispered, "I'm already here." "Get out." "No." He lunged forward, grabbed the stick, hurled it across the room. It clattered against the hearth. "I said get out." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't step back. "You can break sticks. You can't break the truth." His chest heaved. The boards groaned above them. "You don't know the truth," he muttered. "I know enough." "Tell me then." She stared at him, lips pressed tight. "Not yet." The air thickened. He could hear his own heart pounding, louder than the silence. Finally, he asked, quieter, "Why here? Why now?" "Because you came back." He sank into the old chair by the window. Springs groaned under his weight. He covered his face with his hands. The girl stood still, her shadow long across the floor. The stick lay where it fell, pointing at him like an accusation. He whispered through his fingers, "You shouldn't be real." She answered steadily, "Neither should you." The words burned. He dropped his hands, staring at her again, searching for some crack in her calm. "You think this house will give you answers?" "Yes." "It won't." "It already has." "What?" She pointed at the boards over the window. "It told me you were afraid of light." His breath shuddered. He had no reply. For a long moment, neither moved. Dust shifted in the air, catching what little glow slipped through the cracks. Finally, he muttered, "You'll leave by morning." She shook her head. "I'll stay until I'm finished measuring." "There's nothing left to measure." She bent, picked up the stick again. "There is. Memory has size, too." He stood slowly. Rage and fear knotted tight. "If you stay, you'll regret it." "No," she said simply. "You will." The words landed heavy. He wanted to fight, to shout, to force her out, but his legs locked. She pressed the stick against the frame again, calm as before. "Mama said sunlight used to pour in here. I'll make sure it does it again." His mouth went dry. He turned toward the door, but couldn't step through. The house had him pinned, the same as her. The silence swelled, broken only by the scrape of wood against wood, as she measured the window again, line by line, like she was carving open the past. He stood stiff by the window, fists clenched, while the girl pressed the stick against the wood again. The dust shifted with her every move. His voice cracked sharp. "Tell me your name." She didn't look up. "I gave you Mama's." "I don't care about Mama. I want yours." "Mine don't matter." "It matters to me." "No, it doesn't." He took a step closer, boots heavy on the warped floor. "You break into a man's house. You best have the decency to say who you are." She turned then, chin lifted. "You already know." "I don't." "Yes, you do." His jaw tightened. "Don't play games." "I ain't playing." He moved fast, snatched the stick from her hands, and threw it aside. The clatter echoed across the hollow room. "You're leaving now." She shook her head. "Not till I finish." "Finish what?" "Measuring." "There's nothing left to measure." Her eyes drifted over the wall, finger pointing at a faint patch of darker wood. "There used to be a picture right there. Mama said she hung it before you tore it down." "Stop." "She said she stitched the frame cloth herself." "I told you to stop." She ignored him, stepping to the other side of the room. "There was a table here. She marked my height on the leg." His chest burned. "That table's gone. But the wall remembers." He grabbed her arm. "Enough." She jerked free. "You can't erase everything." "You think I haven't tried." His voice cracked, raw. "You tried. Didn't work." He stumbled back, dragging a hand over his face. The air in the house felt thick, heavy, as if the walls leaned in to listen. "You don't belong here," he muttered. She stood still. "Neither do you. Not anymore." His breath shuddered. He wanted to deny it, but the board groaned like they agreed with her. "You say your mama lived here," he said, low. "She did." "When?" "Before you covered the windows." He shook his head. "I would have remembered." "You do. You just don't want to." "I don't remember her." "Yes, you do." He turned, paced to the hearth. Ashes still clung in the cracks, though the fire had long died. "What's your mama's name, then?" The girl's voice dropped. "Ruth." The name struck like a hammer. He gripped the edge of the hearth, knuckles white. "You're lying." "No." "Yes. Ruth's gone." "Gone doesn't mean forgotten." He spun to her. "Don't you say that name again." She lifted her chin higher. "Ruth." His hand shook. He wanted to shout, wanted to slam the door, but his throat closed. "You're cruel," he whispered. "I'm the truth." The silence felt alive, pressing against them both. The house groaned again, a beam shifting somewhere above. She stepped closer to the wall, brushed dust with her fingertips. "See this line? Mama said that's where water leaked down when it rained. She kept a pot under it." He closed his eyes, memory stabbing. "Stop." "She said you never fixed the roof." "Stop." Her finger traced lower. "She said you used to sit in this chair, right here, and drink till you passed out." His eyes opened sharp. "That's a lie." "Then why can I still see the mark on the floor?" He looked. The ring was faint, but there, a dark circle burned into the wood. "Don't," he whispered. "It's proof." He backed away, hit the wall with his shoulder. The boards rattled but held. "You think words can change anything?" he said. "They already have. I told you to get out. I told you no." He moved toward her, anger thick. "You ain't staying in here another second. You can't move me. You're a child. Not to this house." He froze. The way she said it, steady, certain, made the hair on his arms rise. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do. Houses keep memories. So do walls. So do names." "Don't. Mama's name is in this house. That means I am too." His chest heaved. "Your mama left. She was forced out." "No." "Yes." "I didn't. You did." His breath shook. He couldn't meet her eyes. She stepped back toward the window, pressed her hand to the boards. "Why'd you cover them? Why didn't you let the light in?" "Because light shows things best left unseen." Her fingers curled against the wood. "Or because you didn't want anyone to see what you did." "Stop twisting." "I ain't twisting." "You are." I'm reminded." The boards creaked overhead again. Dust rained down, soft, slow, like the house itself was listening closer. He dropped into the chair by the wall, shoulders sagging. His voice came low. "You think you know me. I know enough. You know nothing. I know Mama cried in this room." His eyes shut tight. "I know her hands bled on these walls." He shook his head, muttering, "No. Yes. Not true. Truth doesn't care what you say." The air grew heavier still. Even his own breath felt hard to pull in. "You keep saying her name," he rasped, "because you won't. She's gone. She's here. Not anymore. Yes, every board knows, every nail stop. Her name's left behind." The words hit like a strike. He leaned forward, head in his hands. Silence stretched again, long and sharp. The only sound was his uneven breathing. The girl moved slowly, kneeling near the hearth, brushing her fingers through the ash. "Even this remembers. Fire. Don't forget either." He looked up, eyes hollow. "Why are you doing this?" "Because Mama said someone had to." "Had to what?" "Make you listen." He let out a laugh, broken. "I ain't listening." "You are." "No." "Yes, or you'd have thrown me out by now." His mouth opened, but no words came. She leaned closer, eyes fixed on him. "Say her name." He flinched. "No." "Say it." "I can't." "You won't." His voice cracked. "I can't." Her tone softened just enough to slice deeper. "You can, but you're afraid." He gripped the arms of the chair, nails digging in. "Leave." She didn't move. "I said leave." "No." He slammed his fist into the wall. Dust rained again. The house moaned as if in answer. Her gaze didn't waver. "See? Even the house says no." He stared at her, chest heaving, face pale. The silence pressed again, heavier than any sound. She rose to her feet, walked slowly to the center of the room. Her voice steadied. "This house remembers her. That's why I'm here. You can't erase names, not from wood, not from memory, not from me." He couldn't answer, couldn't move. His eyes stayed locked on her, as if she carried something bigger than herself. The boards groaned once more, echoing the weight of her words, and the silence swallowed them both. The knock shook the silence. Heavy, slow, like the hand behind it carried authority. The man stiffened in the chair, while the girl stood calm in the middle of the room. "Don't move," he hissed. She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because it's him." Another knock, harder this time. "Open up." The man rose, breath sharp, and pulled the door halfway. The sheriff stood there, broad hat shadowing his eyes, badge dull, but still gleaming enough to be recognized. "Got a call," the sheriff said flatly. The neighbor swore they saw light moving in here. The man swallowed. Just me. The sheriff's gaze slid past his shoulder. The house was boarded. Are you back living here now? Number, just checking things. Strange time to check. The girl stepped into view. I was measuring. The man spun, voice low and frantic. Stay quiet. She didn't listen. Mama said sunlight used to pour in here. I wanted to see how wide it was. The sheriff's brow tightened. Who's this? The man snapped. Nobody. I ain't nobody. The girl cut in. The sheriff studied her, eyes narrowing. Name. She doesn't give names, the man said quickly. The girl's tone stayed even. Mama's is Ruth. The sheriff froze. His jaw shifted, the air between them heavy. He stepped inside, boots echoing on the warped boards. Ruth who? He asked. The girl didn't flinch. The one who sewed curtains for these windows. The sheriff turned to the man. Is that true? No. Yes, the girl said. Quiet, the man snapped. The sheriff ignored him. I remember those curtains. Blue stitching. Your wife tore them down. The man's voice cracked. They didn't belong here. Or you didn't want the reminder. Drop it. The sheriff's gaze lingered on him, then back to the girl. How old are you? 13. You live near? Close enough. The man shoved his hand through his hair. She broke in. That's all. The sheriff's tone stayed calm but sharp. Doesn't sound like trespassing. It is. No, the girl said. It's remembering. The sheriff stepped closer, boots heavy. Why now? The girl's eyes flicked to the boarded window. Because he came back. The sheriff turned his stare on the man. So, you did. The man muttered, didn't plan on it. Yet here you are. With her, she followed me. Number I was here first. The girl said. The sheriff's lips pressed thin. This house doesn't sit empty without reason. You know that. The man's jaw locked. I ain't discussing it. You don't have a choice. Not with her standing here. The girl walked to the wall, ran her hand across the faded marks. Mama said these are from where she measured me. Same as I measured the window. The sheriff's eyes lingered. She told you that? Yes. The man barked. She's lying. The sheriff's stare cut back to him. You sure? Yes. Your voice says something different. The man's chest heaved. Don't start. The sheriff folded his arms. I'm not starting. I'm reminded. The girl turned, gaze steady. That's what I told him. The man snapped. Stay out of this. You can't stop me, she said. The sheriff shifted, weight heavy in the floorboards. She's right. Once memory speaks, it doesn't stop. The man's voice shook. She shouldn't even be here. Maybe she should, the sheriff said. The girl whispered, Mama said I'd find truth in this house. She was right. The man's hand trembled at his side. You don't know what truth costs. The sheriff's eyes hardened. You should have thought about the cost years back. Silence stretched, long and sharp. The man turned to the sheriff, voice rough. Why are you even here? To drag me again? The sheriff answered steadily. To warn you. You think you can walk back in like nothing's buried, but dirt shifts, bones rise, and names. Names don't stay down. The girl spoke soft, but firm. Mama's name is here. Ruth. The man staggered back like struck. The sheriff didn't move. Then it's settled. No. The man snapped. Nothing's settled. The sheriff's tone cut hard. It will be, one way or another. The house creaked above them, dust raining down. The girl stepped toward the sheriff, eyes still fixed on the man. He doesn't want light in. That's why he boarded it. Mama said he was scared of what it would show. The sheriff's gaze stayed locked on the man. Is that true? The man shook his head, desperate. She's twisting. The girl didn't blink. I'm reminded. The sheriff's silence was heavier than his words. Finally, he said, Best you start talking before this house does it for you. The man's voice broke. You think walls can talk. They already are, the girl said. The sheriff gave the faintest nod. She's not wrong. The man slammed his fist against the wall, boards shuddering. You both want me to break. That's it. The sheriff stepped forward, close enough to catch his breath. You broke yourself long ago. We're just here to see it. The girl whispered, and to finish it. The sheriff turned to her. Will you stay with him tonight? Yes. The man shouted, No. Yes, she said again, firm. The sheriff studied them both. Then his words landed heavy. You'll regret it if you don't face this now. Memory doesn't vanish. It waits. And when it waits too long, it burns. The girl's gaze didn't waver. Then let it burn. The sheriff looked at her with something like respect. Then he turned back to the man. I'll be back in the morning. You best decide which story you want told. The man's face paled. And if I don't? Then the house will. The silence that followed felt sharper than any shout. The sheriff stepped back, hand on the door. The girl pressed her palm to the boards on the window. Mama's curtains used to hang here, blue with stitched corners. She said they let the light fall across the floor. The sheriff lingered one last moment, eyes meeting hers. I remember them too. Then he left. The door shut hard, leaving only the groan of the house and the ragged sound of the man's breathing. The girl whispered into the stillness, "Told you names don't stay gone." And the silence answered, heavy as judgment. The room felt smaller after the sheriff left. The man sat hunched in the chair, breathing shallow. The girl stayed near the boarded window, her hand resting against the wood as if it were warm. Silence weighed between them until she turned. "I brought something," she said. He frowned. "What?" She reached for the bag slung over her shoulder. The fabric looked worn, frayed at the edges. She pulled out a folded bundle wrapped tight with a strip of twine. "Put it away," he said. "No." Her fingers worked the knot loose, slow, deliberate. Dust spilled as the cloth unrolled, falling heavy into the air. The man froze. His voice dropped low. "Where'd you get that?" She spread it across the floorboards. A quilt torn in places, colors faded, yet the pattern still clear. Flowers stitched at the corners, initials threaded in one square. "Don't touch that," he said. She looked up at him, steady. "Mama said she left it here." He shook his head fast. "Not true." "Yes, it is. I burned it." Her hand smoothed the fabric. "Then how's it here?" His voice cracked. "It can't be." "It is." He rose to his feet, anger tight in his chest. "That's not hers." "It's hers." "You're lying." "No." He stepped closer, glaring down at the quilt. The initials glared back at him, stitched rough but strong. His throat closed. "Those ain't real," he muttered. "They are. They're tricks. Truth don't trick." He turned away, gripping the mantle hard. "You don't know what you're stirring." "I do. I'm stirring memories." The quilt lay silent on the floor, dust rising around it. She knelt, fingers tracing the threads. "She made this when she was young," the girl said. "She stitched flowers so light could fall softer. Said this house felt kinder with it." "Stop talking." "She said you hated it, said you tore it off the bed and threw it in the barn." He slammed his hand against the wall. "I said stop." She kept her eyes on the quilt. "She said she cried while you burned the edge, but she saved it before the fire took it all." His voice broke. "She left. That's the end." "No." "Yes." "She left pieces." He spun. "Why show me this now?" "Because you need to see it." "I don't." "You do." The sheriff's voice cut the silence from the doorway. "She's right." Both turned. He'd returned, leaning against the frame, eyes on the quilt. The man stiffened. "Thought you left." "I did. Then I didn't." Sheriff's boots stepped slow across the boards, eyes never leaving the cloth. "I know that quilt. Ruth showed it to my mother once. Said it was the first thing she made for her own bed." The man's face twisted. "You're siding with her now?" The sheriff's gaze lifted. "I'm siding with the truth." The girl rose to her feet, chin high. "Told you." The man barked. "Quiet." "No." The sheriff said. "She's earned voice." The man's fists trembled. "You don't get to tell me." "I do." The sheriff cut in sharp. "Because this ain't just your house anymore. Not with that quilt laying here." The man's chest heaved, words stalling. The girl pointed to the initials. "That's Mama's mark. She told me she stitched it with her own blood when the needle broke. Said it was proof she belonged." The sheriff crouched, fingers hovering but not touching. "That mark's real. I've seen it before." The man staggered back, face pale. "You're both trying to break me." The girl's voice stayed calm. "You already broke yourself." He stared at her, anger and grief colliding. "You don't understand what this house carried." "I understand enough." "Number, you don't know the fights, the nights, the silence." "She told me." "She lied." "Number, she remembered." The sheriff rose again, standing tall between them, his eyes locked on the man. "She didn't lie. We all knew. We just never said it out loud." The man's voice cracked raw. "Then why now?" "Because memory's tired of waiting." The girl folded the quilt back, careful, as though it still held breath. She tied the twine again, then hugged it against her chest. "She left it so I'd bring it back," she said. The man whispered, "No. She left it because she didn't care." The sheriff cut him sharp. "That's your guilt talking, not hers." The man looked at the quilt, eyes burning. "If it's hers, then it curses this house." The girl shook her head. "It heals it." "Nothing heals here." "Then let the light in," she said. He flinched. "I can't." "You won't." The sheriff's tone landed heavy. "You better learn, because the longer you keep boards nailed, the harder it'll be when they finally come down." The man sank back into the chair, face hidden in his hands. The sheriff and the girl stood quietly, quilt between them, dust floating like an unsettled breath. The silence pressed hard until the sheriff spoke again. "This isn't just about Ruth. This is about all of us. Old feuds stitched wrong, same as that cloth, and sooner or later, stitches tear." The girl whispered, "Then we stitch again." The man groaned, muffled behind his hands. "You think a child can fix what grown men broke?" She held the quilt tighter. "Mama said it had to start with me." The sheriff nodded once slow. Maybe she was right. The house groaned above them, a sound deep and unsettled. The man lifted his head, eyes hollow. "You'll drown us all in memory," he muttered. The girl's answer came steadily. "Better drowned in truth than buried in lies." The sheriff looked at her, then at him. "You hear her? That's the warning. You can deny it, but it won't stay quiet." The man stared long at the quilt in her arms, his voice barely a whisper. "It never did." And the silence thickened again, heavy as judgment, as the quilt's faded threads lay between them like proof no one could burn away. The quilt stayed folded in the girl's arms. Dust lingered heavy in the air, stirred by words none of them wanted to claim. The man sat stiff in the chair, his face pale, his hands shaking against his knees. The girl moved toward the wall. She set the quilt on the floor and reached up, fingering the splintered wood. Her nail scraped against a rusty piece of iron, wedged deep. "What are you doing?" the man asked. She tugged hard. The nail squealed free from the board. She held it up like proof. "Stop that," he barked. "There used to be pictures here," she said. "No. Yes." She slid her fingers down, found another. She pulled again. Another nail, thin and bent, came loose. "Mama said her wedding dress hung from one." His throat tightened. "Lie. She said you left the frame crooked on purpose, so she'd cry." "Enough." The girl yanked another nail, dropped it on the floor with a metallic clink. "She said this wall used to hold her life." "Stop." She turned, eyes hard. "Where'd you put the pictures?" "They never existed." "You're lying." The sheriff's voice broke in. "He's lying." The man's head shot up. "Stay out of it." The sheriff stepped closer, arms folded. "I remember the pictures. My mother saw them once. Ruth standing right here, smiling against that very wall." The man shook his head. "Wild. Number that was never real." "Yes, it was," the girl said. She pressed her palm against the faint square of darker wood. "The wall remembers where the frame blocked the light." His chest heaved. "You don't know what memory does." "I do. It stays. It twists. Number you twist." The man stood fast, pointing at her. "You're digging up ghosts." "They're already here." The sheriff cut sharp. "Answer her." The man snapped back. "You don't command me. I do it when the truth's at stake." "Truth." The man laughed hollow. "Truth's just whatever's left when everyone else is gone." The girl tossed the nails at his feet. "Then why do these stay?" His eyes dropped to the rusted iron scattered across the boards like bones. His breath came ragged. "They mean nothing," he whispered. "They mean everything," she said. "Stop saying that." The sheriff's voice cut blunt. "Say her name." The man's hands curled. "No." "Say it." "I won't." "You will." The girl's voice joined in, calm but unyielding. "Say Mama's name." He staggered back against the wall, nails digging into his shoulders. "You don't understand." "We do," the sheriff said. "You don't." His voice cracked, raw. "You weren't here those nights. You didn't hear the silence. You didn't hear her prayers. You didn't feel what it was like when the light came in and showed what I couldn't stand to see." The girl stepped closer, voice cutting. "What did you see?" He flinched. "Don't ask. I am." "No." "Yes." The sheriff pressed. "Answer her." The man's knees shook. He pressed his palms to his face. "I saw myself. That's what I saw. Weak, useless, less than what this house demanded." The girl's tone sharpened. "So you tore it all down?" His hands dropped. "I had to." "Number you chose to," he roared back, "because she made me feel small." The room shook with the sound. Dust fell from the rafters. The girl didn't move. "She made you feel human," she said quietly. His voice fell to a whisper. "She shouldn't have stayed." The sheriff's eyes darkened. "You drove her out." The man's lips trembled. "I didn't put her on the ground." "You may as well have." The sheriff shot back. Silence pressed sharp. The girl knelt, gathered the nails into her hands. She held them out. "These are names," she said. "They're nothing but rust," the man whispered. "They held her life. They held us." He shook his head fast, desperate. "Don't turn nails into names." "Too late," she said. The sheriff's gaze pinned him. "Where are the pictures?" "Gone." "Where?" "Burned." The girl's eyes narrowed. "You burned her face." His voice cracked. "I couldn't look." "Coward," she spat. He staggered back, struck harder by the word than any fist. The sheriff stepped closer. "Why bury what everyone already knew?" The man's voice shook. "Because knowing ain't the same as seeing." The girl dropped the nails at his feet again, one by one, each sound sharp in the silence. "Now you'll see. Every wall in here still carries her." He bent, picked one up, turned it in his hand. Rust stained his skin. His eyes watered. "I hear her when I close my eyes," he whispered. "Good," the girl said. "Number it kills me. Then let it go." He looked at her, voice breaking. "Why do you want me dead?" "I don't," she said, steady. "I want you true." The sheriff nodded once. "And that's worse than dying." The man dropped the nail, the sound hollow. He sank into the chair again, staring at the wall where empty spaces bled faint outlines of frames long gone. The girl whispered, "Old nails, old names. They don't leave," the sheriff added, "and they don't forgive." The house groaned above them, long and low, like it agreed. Dust drifted down, covering the nails, covering the silence that stretched between them all. The nails still lay scattered across the floor, red rust staining the boards like dried blood. The man sat slumped, staring at them as if they might rearrange themselves into something else. The girl stood tall, arms wrapped around the folded quilt. The sheriff's eyes moved slowly across the room, weighing the silence. Then his boot caught on a loose board. It shifted with a hollow thud. He bent, pressed his hand against the warped plank. "Something's under here." The man's head snapped up. "Leave it!" The sheriff dug his fingers into the crack. "Why? Afraid of what we'll find." "Don't touch it." The board groaned as the sheriff pried it loose. Beneath, dust swirled over a thick book bound in cracked leather. "No," the man whispered. The sheriff pulled it out and laid it heavy on the table. "Ledger." The girl stepped closer. "What's in it?" The sheriff flipped it open. Faded ink scrawled across every page. Names, numbers, debts, dates. He ran his hand down the first column, eyes narrowing. "Ruth," he read aloud. The room froze. The girl's breath caught. "Mama." The man rose fast. "Close it." The sheriff didn't. Debt recorded, clothing work, unpaid, dates going back years. "Close it," the man roared. The sheriff's voice stayed calm. "She worked for you." The girl's eyes burned. "You owed her money?" The man's face twisted. "It wasn't like that." "Yes, it was," she said. "No. You used her. You bled her. She offered. She sewed. You stole." The sheriff turned another page. Plenty of names, farmhands, widows, neighbors, all owing or owed, but Ruth's shows the most. The man staggered closer. "She begged, said she needed help. I gave what I could." The girl spat back. "You gave her nothing." "I gave her work." "You gave her chains." The sheriff closed the book halfway. "You wrote every debt down, but never the payments." "Convenient." The man's voice shook. "It wasn't my hand that wrote it." "It was your house," the sheriff said. The girl stepped close to the table, eyes fixed on the ink. "She said she stitched curtains for these windows, said she worked till her hands bled. And still you told her she owed." He slammed his fist against the table. "She did owe." The sheriff's gaze cut sharp. "For what? For giving her labor? For filling this house with what you couldn't?" The man's chest heaved, words stuck. The girl's voice lowered, calm but sharp. She said you smiled when you wrote her name in red. His eyes widened. I never. She said you laughed when she begged. Stop. You liked watching her break. Stop it. The sheriff's tone landed. Hard. Answer her. The man's voice cracked. I didn't laugh. You did. The girl pressed. No. Yes. I was angry. I was tired. I was drowning in debt myself. So you drowned her too. His breath stuttered. I couldn't stop. You didn't want to. The sheriff opened the ledger again, tapping the page. This is more than numbers. This is a record of every wrong tied to your name. The man whispered, it was survival. The girl's voice shook with fury. It was cruel. He turned to her, pleading. You don't understand what this land does. It eats. It takes. If you don't keep hold, it will bury you. She lifted her chin. Better buried honestly than living like you. He staggered back as if struck. The sheriff shut the ledger with a heavy thud. Dust rose, circling like smoke. You can't bury this book. It tells what you tried to erase. The man whispered, burn it. The girl snapped, no. Burn it all. You already tried burning. You burned quilts. You burned pictures. You burned her face. Not this. His voice cracked like breaking wood. Please. The sheriff's tone was cold. Begging won't cleanse it. The girl placed her hand on the ledger. Her fingers trembled, but her voice stayed firm. Her name stays written. You can't tear it out. The man shook his head. Her name curses me. She wanted it too. The sheriff's eyes hardened. That's what you deserve. The man sank against the wall, sliding to the floor. His head hung low, his breath ragged. The girl looked at him with quiet fury. You made her work until she had nothing left. Then you told her she still owed. He muttered, I didn't mean to. You did. The sheriff leaned closer. You can lie to her. You can lie to me. But this book doesn't lie. The man shut his eyes. I hear her voice when I sleep. Good. The girl said. Number it kills me. Then let it go. His head jerked up, eyes hollow. You sound just like her. The girl didn't blink. That's the point. The sheriff placed the ledger back on the table, heavy and final. This house holds too many ghosts. That book just proves it. The man pressed his palms against his ears, rocking slowly. I can't bear it. You will, the sheriff said. The girl's eyes stayed on the faded ink. Her mother's name glared from the page, unmovable, undeniable. She whispered, Ledger, don't forget. Neither do I. The man groaned low, curling in on himself as the house creaked above them, beams shifting like they too carried memory, and the silence that followed carried the weight of every name still trapped in the pages. The smell of smoke came first, sharp and thick, curling through the cracks of the boarded windows. The girl lifted her head fast, the quilt still clutched to her chest. The sheriff froze, eyes narrowing. The man shot upright, face pale. The sheriff stepped to the door. Stay here. The girl rushed after him. It's the barn. The man muttered, no. But the sheriff threw the door wide. Flames glowed against the night sky, a red crown rising where the barn stood. The girl whispered, it's burning. The sheriff's tone was blunt. That's no accident. The man stumbled out after them, boots dragging. Lightning! There ain't been a storm! The sheriff snapped. The fire roared, boards splitting, sparks shooting into the dark. The girl's voice cut through. Somebody doesn't want the past dragged out. The man barked, shut your mouth. She didn't. What was in there? Hay. Liar. The sheriff glared at him. What else? Nothing. The girl stepped closer, heat lighting her face. Mama said the barn was more than hay. The man shook his head, wild. She lied. She never lied. She wanted pity. She wanted justice. The sheriff's voice sharpened. Tell us. The fire popped loud, sparks raining. The man's hands trembled. It doesn't matter now. It's gone. The girl spat. Then it mattered most. What was in it? The sheriff pressed. The man groaned, covering his face. Work, records, things from the old days. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. Ledger wasn't the only book, was it? The man's voice cracked. I kept notes. On what? On who came and who left. The girl's face twisted. On her. He staggered back. I don't remember. You do. She snapped. The sheriff stepped closer. She's right. Fire doesn't just start. Someone wanted it buried. The man whispered, maybe the house wanted it gone. No. The girl cut in. Men burned it, same as you tried with her. The barn's roof caved with a roar, sparks shooting high. The flames reflected in the girl's eyes. She turned to him. "What did you keep in there?" His throat worked. "Her sewing." The sheriff frowned. "Say it clear." "She sewed dresses, quilts, and curtains. I stored them in the barn after she left." The girl's voice cut cold. "You mean after you forced her out?" His breath shook. "I couldn't keep them in the house. They smelled of her." The sheriff's tone went blunt. "So you locked them away?" "I was trying to forget." The girl's words struck sharp. "You tried to erase her." He shouted. "I was drowning." The sheriff barked. "And you made her drown first." The man's shoulders sagged. The fire crackled behind them, heat pressing heavy. The girl's voice dropped low. "What else was in there?" He didn't answer. She stepped closer, eyes burning. "What else?" He shook his head. "Say it," the sheriff ordered. The man whispered, "Letters." The girl froze. "What letters?" "From her. Her to me. To others." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You kept them." "I couldn't throw them out." The girl's voice trembled with fury. "So you burned them now." His eyes watered. "I didn't light the fire." The sheriff cut him sharp. "But you wanted to." "No." "Yes." The girl spat. The man groaned, sinking to his knees. "I wanted peace." "You wanted silence," she said. The sheriff's tone was final. "And someone gave it to you tonight." The barn collapsed fully, flames swallowing what remained. Embers rained across the yard. The girl hugged the quilt tighter. She whispered, "Mama's past was in there. You locked it up. Now it's ash." The man whispered back, broken, "I'm ash too." The sheriff's gaze hardened. "Not yet. Not enough." The girl looked at the flames one last time. "The barn held her truth, and you buried it. That's what killed her." The man shook, head low. "I didn't kill her." "You did," she snapped. The sheriff didn't deny it. "You did." The man's voice cracked like splintering wood. "I never touched her." "You didn't have to," the girl said. The sheriff stepped between them. "Barn's gone, but the truth ain't. You'll face it, with or without fire." The man raised his head, hollow eyes fixed on the flames. "Then let it burn me too." The girl's voice was steady, cutting through the roar. "It already has." The barn collapsed in on itself, sparks bursting skyward, leaving only smoke and the weight of secrets dragged out into firelight. The barn smoldered behind them, the air thick with smoke and ash. The sheriff stood still, watching the flames die slow. The man crouched low near the dirt, hands blackened, face hollow. The girl didn't look back at the fire. She turned toward the hill that rose behind the house. "We're not finished," she said. The sheriff glanced at her. "Where?" She lifted her chin toward the slope. "Up there." The man groaned, voice breaking. "Not the hill." "Yes," she answered. He shook his head, desperate. "There's nothing up there." The sheriff's tone was firm. "If she says there is, we go." The man's eyes widened. "You can't let her drag you up there." "She already has," the sheriff said. The girl started walking, her small frame cut sharp against the smoke. The sheriff followed, steady boots crunching the dry earth. The man stumbled after, muttering curses, voice cracking against the night. The climb was short but steep. At the top, crooked wooden markers leaned out of the grass, old and splintered, some half buried, some fallen flat. The hilltop was quiet, too quiet, the kind that carried weight. The girl stopped between the markers. She scanned the ground, then knelt by one half-sunk piece of wood. Her fingers brushed dirt from the carving, letters faint, nearly gone. She whispered, "Ruth." The man's voice tore out fast. "No." She didn't look at him. "It's her." He lunged closer, boots sliding in the grass. "That's not her name. It's weathered. You can't read it." "I can," she said. "You're twisting shadows." "Number, I'm reading the truth." The sheriff bent down, squinting in the dim light. He traced the faint grooves with his hand. "It's there." The man snapped. "You can't prove that." The sheriff's voice was calm but final. "The ground proves it." The girl pressed her palm against the dirt by the marker. Her voice was low. "Mama said she never left. She said her body stayed close, even if her name was buried." The man shook his head wild, words spilling fast. "She left. She walked away. She didn't die here." The girl looked up at him. "Then why's her name carved here?" He stuttered. "Coincidence?" The sheriff cut in sharp. "That's no coincidence. Too many things tying back." The man's breath grew ragged. You want me to confess something I don't know? You know, the girl said. No. Yes. I didn't put her here. The sheriff stepped closer. But you knew she was. The man's shoulders sagged. His voice dropped to a whisper. I thought she left. That's what I told myself. That's what I had to believe. The girl's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. She didn't leave me. She never would. The sheriff stood straight, gaze heavy on the man. So who buried her? The man shook his head. I don't know. You do, the girl pressed. I don't. Yes, she snapped. The sheriff's tone cut low. Truth's in your eyes already. The man shouted, It wasn't me. His voice cracked, raw with something like grief. The girl whispered, But you let it happen. His body shook. I was weak. You were cruel, she said. I couldn't stop it. You didn't want to. The sheriff's silence pressed heavy. He looked out over the markers, counting more than one. She's not the only one up here. The girl's hand tightened on the grave. She's the only one I need. The man staggered back, eyes wild on the crooked row of wood. These graves mean nothing, just old ground, names lost. The sheriff's voice was hard. The ground doesn't lie. It holds what we put in it. The girl stood, brushing dirt from her hands. This hill remembers better than you do. The man's chest heaved. You don't understand what remembering costs. She faced him, voice sharp. You don't understand what forgetting costs. The sheriff took a step closer to the grave. If this is Ruth's, someone dug deep to keep it hidden. The girl looked at the man. You hit her. He flinched. No. Yes. His voice shook. I nailed boards. I burned clothes, but I didn't dig this grave. The sheriff's gaze didn't shift. Then who? The man's lips trembled. Men I owed, men who wanted her gone because she kept asking questions. The girl's breath caught. What questions? About the ledger, about the debts, about why her name stayed written while others disappeared. The sheriff's jaw clenched. And you stayed quiet. The man whispered, I thought silence would save me. The girl spat. It killed her. His eyes watered. I know. The sheriff's voice was blunt. That's your guilt to carry, but her grave is proof now. You can't bury that twice. The girl knelt again, palm flat against the dirt. She's here, and so am I. The man turned away, hands clutching his head. His voice came low. I never wanted this house to haunt me. The sheriff's answer was cold. Then you shouldn't have nailed it shut with lies. The girl whispered one last time, Mama. The night air carried the word across the hill, through the leaning markers down to the smoking barn below. The ground stayed silent, but the silence itself felt like truth. The hill behind them kept its silence, crooked markers leaning in the moonlight. Smoke drifted low from the barn's ruins below. The girl was the first to move, heading down the slope with the quilt pressed tight. The sheriff followed slowly, his eyes heavy. The man dragged behind, shoulders bent like the hill itself had broken him. They reached the blackened yard. Embers still hissed in the ashes. The barn was nothing but a heap of charred ribs, smoke curling from its bones. The girl knelt, setting her quilt aside. Her fingers sifted through the ash. Don't, the man muttered. She kept digging. Gray dust clung to her hands. Something hard knocked under her palm. She pulled it free. It gleamed faintly, half blackened. A badge. The sheriff froze. The girl held it up. What's this? The man staggered back. Throw it down. The sheriff stepped forward, voice low. Let me see. She placed it in his hand. The metal was scorched, the star bent. His eyes locked on it, face pale. The girl asked, Yours. The sheriff swallowed hard. Number my father's. The man groaned. Not this again. The girl tilted her head. Again. The sheriff's voice was strained. This barn. It was where he disappeared. The man barked. He didn't disappear. He drank himself dead. The sheriff snapped his gaze to him. Liar. The man spat. Everybody knew he was worthless. The girl's voice cut sharp. Worthless men don't leave badges in barns. The sheriff's grip on the badge tightened. Why was it here? The man muttered, buried in ash like it should be. The sheriff stepped closer, eyes burning. You knew. I knew nothing. You knew. The sheriff said again, sharper. The girl looked between them. Tell us. The man's face twisted. I don't owe you. The truth. The sheriff's voice cracked. You owe me everything. He was my blood. He was drunk. the man shouted. He was sheriff, the girl cut in. The man pointed at her, trembling. Stay out of this. She didn't. This is about Mama, too. You buried both. The sheriff raised the badge, his voice low and raw. He wore this the night he came here. He never came home. And you... He jabbed a finger at the man. You were the last to see him. The man's knees shook. I don't remember. You do, the sheriff pressed. The girl's eyes narrowed. Did Mama see too? The man stuttered. No. Yes, she said. The sheriff's tone turned to steel. She did, and that's why she vanished. The man shouted, I didn't kill them. The girl whispered, but you knew who did. He froze, breath caught. The sheriff took a step closer, the badge glinting faint. Say it. The man shook his head. They'll kill me if I do. They already did, the sheriff said. The girl added, You're just breathing after. The man's voice broke. I was ordered to keep quiet, to cover debts, to bury names. The sheriff's jaw tightened. By who? The man's eyes dropped to the ash. Old families, men who still sit in town halls, men who wrote the ledger before me. The girl's voice shook with rage. So Mama was just another name. His head hung. Yes. The sheriff's hand curled around the badge. And my father. Same. The sheriff's breath came hard. You buried them both in silence. The man's whisper barely carried. I was afraid. The girl's words cut sharp. You chose fear over truth. The sheriff's tone turned deadly quiet. And you let them bury my blood. The man's eyes watered. If I spoke, I'd be in that ground too. The girl stepped closer, voice steady. Better in the ground than living like this. He looked at her, broken. You don't understand. She answered calmly. I understand enough. You took her voice. You let them take his. The sheriff raised the badge, eyes locked on the man. This isn't just ash. It's proof. The man groaned, clutching his head. Burn it, please. The girl shook hers. No more burning. The sheriff nodded. It stays. The man collapsed to his knees, sobbing into his hands. The badge glinted faint in the sheriff's palm, blackened but unbroken. The girl whispered, Mama said truth always finds its way, even through fire. The sheriff stared at the badge long, his voice low. And it just did. The silence after was sharper than any scream, heavy with names dragged out of ash. The sky was dull with ash. Smoke still hung in the air, trailing from the barn's black bones. The badge rested on the sheriff's belt now, darkened but visible. The girl didn't look at the fire anymore. She turned toward the back edge of the yard and pointed past the fence line. There's one more thing. The sheriff followed her gaze. What is it? She stepped forward. The well. The man's voice came hoarse. That's sealed. Not sealed enough, she said. He shook his head. It's dry. She didn't slow. Mama said water still remembers. The sheriff glanced at the man. You coming? The man stayed still. No point. There is, the girl said. She kept walking. The sheriff moved after her. The man followed, slower, steps dragging. They passed the line of split fence posts and tall grass. The air grew colder the closer they got. The well sat in the back field, round and low. The stones were thick with moss. The wood cover was warped. One side caved in. Ropes hung in tatters along the rim. The girl stood over it. She brought me here once. The sheriff asked, Why? She said the water could hear. The man muttered, It's just stone. She ignored him. Mama said she used to speak her truth down into it. Said no one else would listen. The sheriff peered over the edge. Darkness yawned below, no bottom in sight. The girl spoke again, softer. Her voice is still down there. The sheriff raised a brow. You mean memory? No, she said. Her voice. The man scoffed. You've lost your mind. She stared at him. You heard it too. He stepped back, face paling. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The sheriff looked at the man. Why'd you seal it? The man's voice was tight. Rope snapped. Someone nearly fell. That's not why. I said it was. The girl pointed at the rim. You see these scars? The sheriff bent. Deep grooves carved into the stone edge, old and worn, like something pulled over it too many times. Rope marks, he said. The girl nodded. Mama said she used to lower buckets even after the pump stopped. Said water at the bottom never stopped speaking. The man's hands curled. That well's cursed. No, she said. It's full. With what? Everything you buried. The sheriff stared into the dark. Do we drop something down? The girl shook her head. Just listen. The man turned away. This is madness. The sheriff knelt beside the opening. He pressed his ear close. Silence. Then, faint. Something. A creak. A breath. A single echo, like cloth brushing stone. He leaned back. Thought I heard. You did, she said. He looked at her. You think she's down there? She put her truth there, piece by piece. The man barked. You think she whispered confessions to a pit? The girl didn't flinch. I remembered, when no one else did. The sheriff's gaze returned to the stones. What did she say? She talked about you, she told the man. His mouth twitched. Lies. She said, you watched them drag her out the house. Said you turned away when she screamed. He turned on her. That never happened. She said the well took it all in. The sheriff's voice was low. Truth has a way of seeping down. The man stepped forward. You think memory lives in stone? Yes, she said. The wind moved, light, thin, brushing over the mouth of the well like breath. The sheriff stared into the dark again. Feels like something's waiting. The girl sat cross-legged beside it. Mama said if I ever needed her, I should come here. The man barked, she's dead. The girl stared straight ahead. Truth isn't. He looked away, breathing hard. The sheriff said, she left something for you, didn't she? The girl nodded. A name. A memory. A place. The man shouted, she's a ghost. She answered, calm. She's louder than you. The sheriff turned to him. You heard something last night, after the fire. The man didn't answer. The girl whispered. She screamed. The sheriff asked, and you heard her? The man's face was pale. It was the wind. The girl looked at him. It said your name. He stepped back fast. Stop. She called it out. Shut up. She said you let them take her. Enough. She said you watched. The sheriff didn't move. Did you? The man fell to his knees, hands shaking. I didn't know what they'd do. You knew, the girl said. I was scared. You were selfish. His voice cracked. I didn't light the fire. But you fed it, she said. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You let her disappear. The man looked up at them. I hear her in my sleep. Good, the girl said. The wind shifted again. The stones creaked under its weight. The girl leaned toward the dark and whispered, Mama. No echo. Then, soft, a second whisper. A draw of breath, carried back. The man jumped to his feet. We have to leave. The girl stayed still. You can go. He turned, walking fast through the grass, breath catching. The sheriff stayed behind. She wanted this known, the girl said. The sheriff nodded. Now it is. The well held its silence again. The house stood quiet again. The fire was out. The well was behind them. The sky held no clouds, just a flat, gray light pushing toward morning. The girl walked ahead. Her boots hit the porch first. She didn't hesitate. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The sheriff followed without a word. The man came last, shoulders slumped, face gray with ash and silence. Inside, the room felt the same. Still boarded, still heavy. Dust clung to the windows like skin. The air didn't move. The girl looked up. It's time. The sheriff asked, for what? She pointed at the boards nailed over the window. Let it in. The man groaned. Don't. She reached for the first board. Her fingers dug into the wood. She pulled hard. The nails groaned. The man took a step forward. Please. She didn't stop. The first board ripped free. Light cracked through like a blade. He shielded his face. It's too bright. She threw the board down. You've lived in the dark too long. Another board came loose, then another. The room changed with every pull. Sunlight slashed across the floor, breaking years of stillness. The man stumbled backward, hand over his eyes. Stop! The sheriff didn't move. Keep going. The girl kept tearing. Dust swirled in gold beams. The walls lit up. The floor lit up. The corners that hadn't seen light in years lit up. The man pressed against the far wall. It hurts! The sheriff's voice was flat. Truth does. The girl stepped back. All the boards lay in a pile. The window gaped wide, sunlight pouring through like judgment. The man whispered, It wasn't supposed to come back. The girl turned to him. But it did. He lowered his hand. His eyes blinked against the light. They looked red, hollow. The sheriff crossed his arms. You ready now? The man didn't answer. The girl stepped closer. Tell it. He shook his head. No. Tell it, she repeated. The sheriff's tone cut in. Start talking. The man looked at the floor, his voice cracked. I didn't mean to be part of it. The girl's eyes narrowed. But you were. He nodded once. They came one night, told me she was talking too much, asking things that weren't hers to ask. Who? The sheriff said. He didn't lift his head. Men I owed, men from town, men who wore clean clothes and dirtied hands. The girl whispered, and you let them. He winced. They said they'd make her disappear. And you said yes, she snapped. I said nothing, he whispered. The sheriff's voice was hard, which was enough. The girl stepped in closer. Did you see it happen? He nodded. I was here. The sunlight climbed the walls as he spoke, lighting the corners where dust had settled like silence. She screamed once, he said. Then she didn't. The girl's voice trembled. And you stood still. I stood still. The sheriff didn't speak. He just stared. The girl whispered, She trusted you. I didn't ask her to, but she did. The man's knees buckled. He dropped into the chair by the window. I told myself it wasn't my fault. The sheriff said, That's how it always starts. The man looked up at them both. You think I haven't paid? The girl didn't blink. Not yet. He stared at the sunlight, his voice low. It's ugly. No, she said. It's true. The sheriff asked, Why keep the house? I thought if I stayed close, maybe the guilt would ease. The girl said she wasn't guilty. She was a mother. He lowered his eyes. I couldn't look at her. She was stronger than me. She still is, the girl said. The room filled with mourning. Every wall shone now. The shadows shrank back. The man looked down at his hands. They didn't bury her with a name. I gave it back, the girl said. The sheriff stepped forward. Who else was involved? The man hesitated. Names, the sheriff said. The man whispered, Hollis and Dyer. The rest, I don't know. The sheriff nodded. That's a start. The girl said, They took her light. I brought it back. The man raised his face to the window. Sunlight hit him full. He didn't shield his eyes this time. I hear her in this room, he said. Good, the girl said. I see her hands on the walls. She left them there. I smell her stitching in the corners. She's everywhere you tried to erase. The man looked down. You're her. The girl said, I'm what she left behind. The sunlight kept pouring in. The sunlight stayed. No one spoke for a while. The boards lay in a broken heap on the floor. Dust floated in the light like it had waited years to breathe. The girl moved first. She picked up the quilt from where she'd laid it earlier. Folded, it looked smaller now. Worn, heavy. She turned toward the hallway. The man asked, Where are you going? She didn't stop. Her room. He stood, slow. That door hasn't opened in years. The sheriff stepped past him. Then it's time. The hallway creaked under their steps. The last door sat at the end. Paint peeled down to bone. No lock. Just quiet. She reached for the handle. Her fingers curled around it. She turned it slowly. The door opened. The room hadn't changed. Dust blanketed the bed frame, thin and rusted. Curtains still hung in the corners. Pale thread, once blue, now gray. The floor held no prints. She stepped in. The man stayed in the doorway. I boarded that room first. The girl answered, You couldn't board her in. The sheriff stood beside her, watching. She walked to the bed. The mattress was gone, just wood slats beneath a sunken quilt of dust. She unfolded the one in her arms and laid it flat across the frame. The stitched corners fit the wood like they'd never left. She smoothed it down with both palms. She belonged here. The man whispered, I didn't know how to stop remembering. She turned to him. So you erased it instead. He nodded. That was the only way I knew. The sheriff spoke low. Not the only way, just the easiest. The man leaned in the doorframe. His eyes scanned the room. She used to hum in here, quiet. You could barely hear it through the wall. The girl sat on the edge of the bed. I still hear it. The curtains shifted in the breeze from the open hallway. Light fell through threadbare stitches. She looked up at them. She made those. "I know," the man said. "She put her name in the corner." "I know." The sheriff moved to the window. He tugged gently on the cloth. One stitch popped loose, then held. She wanted it to stay. The girl's voice dropped. "So did I." The man stepped inside, slow. He walked to the wall and pressed his hand against it. "She sat here sometimes, with her back to the door." The sheriff turned. "Why?" "She said the room had more truth when you weren't watching it." The girl stared at him. "And still, you watched her fall." His hand dropped. "I see it every time I close my eyes." She nodded once. "Good." He looked at the quilt. She stitched through Winters. Bleeding fingers. "I never said thank you." "You said less than that," the girl replied. The sheriff stepped back to the doorway. He gave the room one last long look. "She's here now," he said. The girl stood. She never left. The man turned to her. "What happens now?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "What do I do with what's left?" The sheriff answered for her. "You carry it." The man looked down. "It's too heavy." "She carried more," the girl said. He nodded once. "That's true." She stepped past him. "Let it hurt." He didn't move. She paused at the door. "This house ain't yours anymore." He met her eyes. "Then whose is it?" She looked toward the window. "Hers." The sunlight shifted, warming the quilt. The stitched corners caught the light. The thread shimmered like it was breathing again. The sheriff turned to leave. The girl stayed one more moment. She looked around the room, at the walls, the slanted light, the dust clinging like memory. She whispered, "You can rest now, Mama." Then she closed the door, and the house, at last, was quiet.